Hey y'all, it's Michelle, the Southern Shell, and I'm going to show you how to make this cute little Super Bowl gnome. So this is the Christmas one I made. He's got a handful of presents and bells hanging off his hat, and he's just a fuzzy fun one. So I'm going to show you the stuff that I'm going to be using in this project. The first thing I had to order were some footballs. I didn't have any miniature football stuff, so I got these little footballs from Amazon. I'll link it below, and they're foam. I ordered this from Walmart. It was the best price I could get for what I needed, and they're nice big pieces. So I went ahead and pulled out this red and black buffalo plaid. The fuzzy ribbon I got off of Amazon as well. I'll link that below. I got 2 yards of some black cotton fabric, and I'll be using that. The fuzzy balls up here I use on my crocheted items. I'll be using a cute little black one on top of my gnome. I'll link those below. For the gnome's body, I used an old Downy Sense from Sam's Club, so it's a nice big one. In order to weight it down, I put the bag of the glass flat backs from Dollar Tree, and I'm using some old mismatched socks. Now, if you've been married or have children and dry your clothes, you probably have some socks that have been mismatched, have been lost in transition, and I'm just pulling out some of them that have the different colors on them to stuff down in that Downy bottle to stop those flatbacks from moving around. I went ahead and put the lid back on and removed that label. You can leave it on, take it off, beforehand, afterhand, it doesn't matter. I'm picking out a sock to go around this, and I'm using a compression sock because that bottle is actually quite wide. I'm going to be using hot glue fabric, and that's going to help hold all this fabric stuff together. If you're doing fabric, you want to use a fabric glue. That little cardboard piece is actually a little cake piece that you can use when you're decorating cakes. Perfect for this. I'm going to use that sock and pull it right on up around there. You can see because it is that compression sock, it has a lot of give, and it will pull all the way up and around, clear down to the toe. Now I have a small jar of the little rubber bands. I can get those at Dollar Tree, Walmart, Dollar General, Family Dollar. I'm sure Target probably carries them. They work great to secure that sock around the top of that bottle so you can start an area for your hat. Now let's go ahead and get this secured onto that little cardboard round. This is going to give the bottom a wider base so it will stand up nice and have less chance of falling over. I'm just using that fabric hot glue and securing it right in the middle of that base. I'm going to go ahead and use another sock to cover this up. It's one of those fluffy socks that you wear in the wintertime. That way I don't have to cover the bottom with any felt. It will already be ready at this point. It's not going to fit nicely around that like the sock did around the bottle. So I'm just cutting rings off and gluing it to the top part of that cardboard round and making sure it's going to reach all the way around and cover it up nicely. Since it is a 5-inch ring, I'm going to need 2 rings of this sock to make it all the way around the base of this. I'm just going to use that glue again and just attach it very well all the way around so that they meet nicely and there's no visible seam. So let's go ahead and pull that right around the edges, putting the extra glue right up underneath and over the edge, pulling it down nice and tight. Now this is important that we get this nice and snug, pulling it down and glued down properly. This is the base, and we don't want any loose ends coming up and making it uneven. I'm now going to take that leftover piece of sock and open it totally using the scissors. I'm going to measure it along the bottom, cut it out slightly smaller, so I can glue it on there and stretch it out to fit. I'm going to use a good amount of that hot fabric glue, stretching it across there, making sure that each spot has good coverage so it's not going to come loose. I cut it a little big, so I'm going to go ahead and trim off any extra and then glue down the remaining all the way around, sealing up that seam. Now I'm bringing that fabric back in, that black cotton fabric. It started out 2 yards, and I used it for one gnome already, and now I'm using it for this wonderful football gnome. I held it up and made sure that it was going to make it all the way around this bottle. Now this is actually folded in half, so all I had to do was fit halfway around and then cut it right on up. Now I am going to be putting some fiberfill in there to give this little guy some shape, so I needed to make sure it was going to be big enough to hold that fiberfill as well. It's time to get hot gluing again. I'm just going to open that fabric and lay the center across the front of the bottle. It doesn't matter at this point which part is going to be the front to me because it's all getting covered. I just wanted to glue it down nice and firm across that bottom and make sure that that's going to go all the way around and just tuck under that lip of the cardboard base. Once I get the first half of that glued all the way around, I'm going to go ahead and get most of the other side done because I'm going to start stuffing the fiberfill in there, and I just wanted it to be tucked all the way down. It's not a big deal to do it at this point, but I wanted to get some in there where I could maneuver it and stuff it down and not have to worry about any loose pieces. I mean, this bottle does have a little bit of an hourglass shape, so I wanted to make sure that the base had some stability back there with some fiberfill. Here I'm just taking that hot glue and I'm going to make a little hem along that side so that when I'm pulling it around, that will be the outside and there won't be any loose uncut ends. Continuing to glue around the base, I'm going to pull that nice and tight, and that way you can see how far that's overlapping there. That's going to give me plenty of room to stuff some more fiberfill in there. It's going to work out quite nicely, and pull it up there and I'm able to start stuffing. All right, let's get stuffing here, and we're just going to loosen that fiberfill and pull it around, and I want to fill that little hourglass area so that he does not have that shape anymore. Gnomes shouldn't be curvy, they should be snuggly. Now as I'm filling him, I'm going to seal him up a little bit towards the back and go ahead and just add a little bit more down in there, and it gives me an enclosed area that I can continue to stuff him and make him full right where we need him to be. What I'm doing is pulling that fabric up and around that fiberfill and continuing to move the fill to move it around so it's not just in one area. You want to spread it out evenly. Using that fabric hot glue again to seal up that back. And now what I'm doing is I'm folding it down and giving a ring of that hot glue around that edge and folding it up to create a hem right there as well. Went ahead and laid him down so you can kind of get a better idea about how I'm doing that little hem. Once I get them all glued around that hem, I'm going to pull them up nice and tight. That hem is now going to be glued down to the top where his hat is going to start. I am adding that glue onto that hat where that sock has been attached, and we're just going to pull him up opposite ends and glue it down. Because of the narrowness of where the hat starts and the fullness of his body, you're going to have some more fabric. So what you need to do is glue it and kind of pull it together. And then I'm letting that glue set up because the hot glue, it doesn't dry, it does a curing where it cools off and sets up. Doing the opposite sides and then pinching them together will help you create the bottleneck look at the top, which is going to become the hat of the gnome. Getting to the last little bit there, which is right on the back, I'm going to add that hot glue along that last little bit of hem, and that's going to be pulled tight to the top where the hat's going to start. I'm going to add some hot glue in the middle and pinch it, and that is going to give us the last little piece that needs to be folded around and glued down. I'm doing this voiceover here with my husband sitting next to me, and bless his heart, he's sick. So he is trying his best to breathe quietly while I do this with y'all. And this is the last little bit that we have here to hold down for our little body. Look at how full he is. You would have never guessed that that is a Downy bottle. I think it turned out so cute. Well, it's a black blob, but I think it's cute. Alrighty now, let's get started on some facial hair. This is the fur ribbon. I know that sounds so weird, that I got off of Amazon. I'm just looking at that and I am going to brush it out just a tad bit. And when I hold it up to the bottle, it looks like right at that little hem right there, that seam where it was, is going to be the perfect width to make this little guy's beard. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut right along there, brush him out with this little brush I have in my craft kit, and look how much nicer that looks. I mean, the first one looks like me when I wake up in the morning, and the second one doesn't look like me at all. But there you have it. Look at how cute that's going to be. So once again, this hot glue, fabric hot glue, is the way to go. So this thing does not come off. Load it on up, making sure you get up into those corners and along the center so that you have plenty of glue to attach this on there. One of the nice things about using this hot glue is it does not set and cure immediately. You have a few seconds to move it around, which I put this beard on a little cockeyed at first, and so I was able to pull him off and straighten him up and just add a little bit more hot glue to that spot, because by the time I got it back down there, it was cured. So I went ahead and just did it again. On the top part of the beard, I didn't want it as full against the top. Most people do this at the bottom. I really wanted it at the top. I wanted that great big full beard at the bottom. And so I just trimmed a little bit across the top, used that hot glue, and added it right on there. I left plenty of room between the beard and the hat. I wanted to make sure that I had room enough to add a mustache to there as well, because I'm just me, want to do things a little different. Once he's all on there, and I know he's on there nice and tight, I pulled his beard apart where I could see kind of right where the middle is, and I have this wooden ball. Now this wooden ball, I believe, is 1.5 inches, and I've had it down in my stash. So I went ahead and just added that fabric hot glue and attached that nose right there. I'm cutting out a little piece of that, and you can see I just have a little bit of a curve to it, and I'm going to fold that top piece down, and I'm now going to glue it to the top of my nose. Brush them out a little bit, and then I'm going to take each side and make sure that it is nicely attached to that that fabric underneath. Both sides, brush it down, glue it, and press it down. Now I can brush him out, and he has a nice little mustache on top of that nose. Alrighty, let's work on that hat. So here is that plaid material that I got, and I'm just going to take it and fold it right sides together. I'm taking a dinner plate, and I'm going to go ahead and just draw about 1/4 inch around the outside of that dinner plate. This is going to help me make that little bucket hat on top of the gnome's head. If you wanted to make a tall, thin hat, you're going to want to go kind of clear up to the top of that fabric and then kind of come back down. Don't make the circle, and make it more of a triangle shape. I got that decal on Etsy. It is 5 inches from tip to end, and that'll tell you just how big this thing is. It's really good size. It was an iron-on, and so it was really easy to put on that fabric. I'm going to go ahead and just clean him up because that fur and the fiberfill just makes a mess everywhere. So it's just easier doing any last minute touch-ups here with the glue on the edges. Just want to make sure that everything is good. So I'm going to add this fiberfill to the top of that sock. I'm going to secure it with another one of those small bands. And I didn't add too much. I just wanted enough to give that hat some shape without it collapsing. I have some of this ribbon here from Christmas that matched that material perfectly. I am cutting a piece of the black material out to match the length. And this is going to help with the brim of the hat. I just love this idea, and it turned out super cute. I'm going to add a hem to this to help with those raw edges so there won't be any fraying as we put this together. Now here comes the fun part, attaching a straight part to a curved part. Now what I wanted to do was get around the front of the hat as straight across as possible without losing anything for that emblem. And then I'm bringing it around to the back, and I'm doing the same on the back side so it's straight across there just to match the front. Now what you're going to do with this is now you're going to have to pull the sides in and meet them up on the sides halfway down and put a little bit of glue there to tack it in place. I did that on both sides. And once you do that, now it's time to get a little gather in for around the rest of the hat. Now I turned it inside out so you can see what I'm doing a little better here. So for each piece now, I'm going to bring up the piece of the brim and attach it to the piece of the hat that comes around in that circle. I'm going to tack it down each time as I'm bringing up the center piece to the hat itself to the piece below at the hat, the brim. I know I don't want to confuse you. It's easier just to kind of watch it. It might be easier for some of you to go ahead and do a slip stitch around the hat piece and then gather it in and then attach it to the brim itself. It just depends on what you're willing to do and how much work you want to put into it. It's easier for me. I could have sewn it, I could glue it, it really doesn't matter. Some people do not like to sew and they'd prefer to glue. I will be doing the boots with the sewing technique, so you'll be able to see it. Here I'm just going in between each piece and gluing that tacking that down. And as I continue around, those little pieces get smaller and smaller. And eventually I just put the glue totally up into what little piece is left and then hold it on down to the top of the brim. And then you have that gather done on that side. It does take a little bit of time and a lot of hot glue. I'm now on the inside of the hat and I'm folding up the outside edge of the brim that I put on there, folding it and gluing it to the inside of where we've gathered that plaid material and glued it to the black material. We've attached it there. Now we're just folding it on up and sealing that in, making sure that all our raw edges are now hidden. It's not like anybody's going to see them on the inside. I just felt better having them all enclosed with that fabric hot glue, knowing that it's not going to have any fraying happen. I'm going to go ahead and come around here. You can see where that white glue just pops on through. That is the one thing about using the fabric hot glue. It is just so white against any other color. Now for the easiest part of this hat, gluing that ribbon to the lower part of that black rim. Super simple. I'm just adding that hot glue and I'm attaching that ribbon right around there. And then when I get to the end, I'm going to go ahead and attach it and glue it together so that we have no fraying on the ribbon part as well. I'm taking some more of that fabric hot glue and I'm attaching it and squeezing that sock down to make our hat area more stable and not try to pop off. I'm going to go ahead and hold it down. I was going to try to use one of those rubber bands, but they're so little, you just have to hold it, or you can put a big rubber band around it. Now, I wanted something to give this hat a little more, hey, I'm a gnome look. So I'm taking some more of that fur that I used for the beard, but I'm taking some in black. And I'm cutting the strip down thin enough to put on that black cotton fabric that I used to create the brim. I'm trimming the excess fur off, and I am going to just brush it out and make sure it's all nice and trimmed up. I don't want it to look funky or uneven or like badly cut bangs, but I wanted it to be able to look like it's just a fuzzy brim on the hat. You've seen me cut that one piece right in half lengthwise, and now I'm just using the first one as a guide to trim the other piece up. I'm going to put this little jar in there and use it to stabilize the hats and have nothing behind it so that the glue won't leak through and stick to anything below it. It's so easy to put this on there, and as you see, it's going to help cover up any of that white where that hot glue came through. It's a great way to cover up anything when you're using the glue sticks that aren't clear, which would be your wood glue and your fabric glue. And just look at what a difference that little furry piece just did for this hat. I just really like the way it turned out. And I'm just fluffing that up all the way around, and I can sit it right on there, and oh my goodness, it's so stinking cute. Now I do put the fuzzy ball on the hat, but the first thing I want to do is attach the hat. And that is so I know exactly where the top is going to be. First thing I do is put the glue across the top of the nose and attach that brim of the hat right across that nose top. Once I do that, I know where the top of my hat is going to be, and I can just attach that little fuzzy ball to the top using that hot glue and holding it on there. This is where this little guy really starts taking shape, and I'm just using my little brush here and brushing and just enjoying watching him come together, and can't believe just how cute these things turn out. I am now going to go ahead and get working on the arms. Now I took some more of that ribbon and I cut them down to the same size, and I'm going to go ahead and glue them together lengthwise. As you see, my precise measuring is at hand here. Because no gnome is the same when you're doing these DIY like this, I just have to lay them up and make sure that they're going to fit with what I want them to before I get started. As you see, I'm just taking this hot glue and I'm laying it right across the black area of my ribbon, and I'm gluing it down. I'm going to do the same thing with the other ribbon, and that way they will both be the exact same length and thickness with the ribbon. Once this is all done, I'm going to go ahead and just create some little hands there, but I want to stick the polyfill down in there, and it's going to take a little bit of effort to get it down after that glue is dried, which is fine. We don't want it popping the edges. But I'm just using one of my grandson's pencils. He's in preschool, so this is a nice big pencil. And I'm shoving that polyfill right on down in there, clear down to the end, so that that little arm has some substance to it. Now I'm just going to work my fingers around those little arms and making sure that that polyfill is evenly distributed, and I'm going to fold the little tips down and glue it to make a little hand to grip that football. I am trying to loosen up that polyfill just a little bit. It was kind of stuck down there, and I just reached in with that pencil and loosens it up a little bit. I'm going to do the second hand here, same way I did the first, just folding those corners down, making that little triangle tip where the football is going to be held with, and fold it on over. Now attaching the hands to the football. This gave me such grief. I tried using some of the hot glue, and you can see right there where that hand is. It just did not want to stay on that football. It did not want to hold on to that football. I tried some other tacky glue, and it did not want, I tried both hands with that one. It didn't want to do anything. I'm trying now E6000, and I thought I would go ahead and give this a try. I went ahead and I took some tape and I wrapped some tape around it to hold it in place while I moved on. Now this is the where I'm making the boots. So I'm drawing that circle just like I did with the hat, and I went ahead and cut these out, and I have my needle and thread there where I'm just going to do a running stitch, and I'm going to close up that little circle and create a boot. A running stitch is very easy. I went ahead and just started about a 1/4 inch in, and I looped it around where I had tied a knot in the bottom of my thread. And now you just in and out, in and out, in and out, and you're just doing that running stitch, pulling it as you go, and it's going to actually gather that circle up for you. Now gathering the polyfill and stuffing that little circle. Once I get the polyfill in there, you can pull on your thread and it's going to close that right up. Put a few little stitches in there just to close the circle up. And I'm not worried too much about tying it off. I'm just sticking a few extra stitches, cut it off, and set it aside. I'm going to do the exact same thing to the second circle. I'm going to stuff it and cinch it up and put a few more stitches in there. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and see that these are equally spaced apart just under his beard. Plenty of room down there. Lots of hot glue. Get that nose in the center and put one of those little feet on each side. Now you can get little boots to put on there. You can stand them on legs, but you know, we're trying to save money on these little things, and so sometimes it's easier just to create little feet and stick them right up on there. And I think this works just fine. Just going to take some more hot glue there, pop it on down, make sure that these little feet aren't going to go anywhere and that they're nicely attached with that little fur beard all around him. He's getting close. He's getting close. Look at this. He's so cute. Oh, yeah. Let's take a look. I've got a little boo-boo up there on his nose, and I'm not happy with it, but I'm going to fix that. We're going to get these arms attached now. We've had that ball sitting there with that E6000, hoping that that just works real well. We're going to attach these arms by pulling it around, sticking it up under the hat, and gluing that down. And let's do the other side. We're just going to wrap it around there. You can't see me doing it. I'm sorry. I'm going to add that glue up in there and stick that little arm right up underneath that hat, just like I did on the other side. Now let's get the rest of that hat glued down. What I'm doing here is I'm keeping him stood up because I need to pull that hat down. And I'm just adding some hot glue in the very back, pulling that hat so it's coming down below where we've actually attached those arms. Now here you can see it. Barely. I gave you a quick peek, didn't I? And then I'm just going to go all the way around with that glue to make sure that hat is finished and glued all the way around. And let's play with the ball now. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Moment of truth is coming up. And let's take off that tape. Here we go. Gently. I didn't want it to be too attached. But to be honest with you, I could not get the tape to stick to the ball. Now, I didn't mind so much that side because I figured it was probably because I had other stuff on the hand. So I went ahead and just made a little area there, that was rough by cutting the little tip of that ball off. Then I add some of my Gorilla hot glue and stuck it on there and was praying, and guess what? It grabbed. I was so happy. It grabbed. I was like, finally, we should be good to go. The other one is holding with that little piece, and then it didn't. It just fell right on off. So I went ahead and cut the other tip off. For some reason, the outside of these footballs did not want anything. So cutting into that a little bit, it gave a little bit of some rough edge, and it just picked up and grabbed right a hold of that hand and that inside of the football. So I was like, okay, this is it. We're good to go. So we've got that glued down, and then I'm going to make sure that the football is facing forward a little bit, making sure that that's there. But first I'm going to stick that butterfly right on the end of that nose, covering up where that white glue just seeped on through there. I was very disappointed in that, but I put a butterfly on there because it is a gnome. You know, gnomes,
And here
gnomes
is our
and
Kansas
butterflies go
City
together.
gnome ready to go play on the field. I put a little butterfly on his nose. I just think it's super cute. Let me know what you think.
Thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you've not subscribed to my channel, I hope you will consider doing so now by hitting that subscribe button. If you liked what you see, please give me a thumbs up and like on this video. That will let YouTube know that people like this type of video and share it with others. As always, stay safe, God bless, bye for now.